Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. It's your friend Benjamin Aronov, trusted developer advocate from Vonage. I see we have a couple people here. Madeline, Omer. I'm going to pretend like you guys aren't my friends. Alvaro, also pretend that you're not my friend. So welcome to the webinar. Today we are going to go over building RCS interactive experiences. And if I want to drop in the chat, I don't know, tell me something interesting about your day, as if I haven't spoken to everyone here already. Let's see, we got somebody new here. Cassiano, welcome, welcome. So yeah, welcome everybody. If say hello, let us know where you're joining from. And curious how you found out about this webinar, and if you've used RCS before, if you know what RCS is, what something that you might be curious about with RCS. So I'm Benjamin. I'm joining from Tel Aviv. Been Vonage for a while, but I'll tell you a little bit more about myself in a couple minutes. Let's give people a minute or two to join.
Benjamin, you are muted. You're muted, Benjamin.
Oh, thank you, Alvaro. Sorry, I hope I wasn't talking for too long. See a couple of new attendees have joined. So yeah, let me just start over. My name is Benjamin Aronoff. I'm a developer advocate at Vonage, and today we're going to be building a really cool, fun, new customer engagement customer user experience with a new messaging channel called RCS. So without further ado, about me, I call myself a code tinkerer. I like to try different new technologies, new platforms, but for me, it's all about building something functional. So that's why this workshop's pretty cool and fun, because doing something fun that you can probably use in your day-to-day life, even if it's for a fun side project. I've been at Vonage for 5 years working as a developer advocate, and as my LinkedIn title says, befriending AI before it's too late. So what is Vonage? The corporate answer is we're a cloud communications platform that allows developers to integrate voice, video, and messaging into their applications using communication APIs and now network APIs. So as we'll learn today with RCS, we have a host of APIs that allow you to integrate messaging, voice, video into whatever application you're building with a whole host of different SDKs and whatever flavor of technology you're most comfortable in. And now, since we got acquired by Ericsson a couple of years ago, we're building out a suite of network APIs, which is very exciting and allows the developer to that allows you as a developer to customize your end user experience based off the mobile network. If you have questions about that, I'd be happy to discuss that at the end. So what is RCS? It stands for Rich Communication Services. What does that mean? Well, it's kind of the easiest way to explain is to show what we're going to build today. So we're going to touch quite a lot of the new features available in RCS that take it beyond plain old messaging. So it's a little video. So we'll start. RCS is basically a protocol that allows you to send messages in the default messaging app. So Messenger on iOS. Wow, I've been out of the US for too long, so all I know is WhatsApp. But Android Messenger and iOS messages. So here we'll start by sending a first message, who will win, and the user has a couple of three options here: Brazil, Germany, or draw. So all they have to do is click on one. They'll click on Brazil. It sends back this beautiful card with an image and some information. And again, they have three options here to select who they want to vote for. Choose Ronaldinho. And based off of that choice, they'll get this catalog of sweet Ronaldinho merchandise that they can buy. And each merchandise gives them a link, which, you know, in a real situation would link to the store where you could send your users. And that's what we're going to build. And I think we will probably be able to do it pretty quickly. Let me just check. Okay. So that's going to be our objective. Why is this not letting me go to the next slide? Okay, so that's what we're going to build, and a little bit more about RCS. So as I said, it's natively supported on your built-in iOS messaging apps for iOS and Android. This came out on iOS just at the end of last year, and Android it's also pretty new from 2024. Has quite a lot of new features. So as you can see, it's not just text messages and images. You have these things called rich cards and carousels of rich cards. Also the suggested replies. That's the name for those buttons that you can just press, which is pretty cool and interactive. And also you can do the quality of the images and the videos you can send is much higher. You can also send files and what they call actions. So those are those links that take you to a URL, or also you have some built-in functionality, like you can pre-program it to create a calendar event or open in a map. So there's quite a few new features that you didn't have before to engage with your users, and also it enhances the user experience so that they know they can trust these messages. It's not just coming from a random text with the branding. The thing is, because it is an actual app, it requires an active internet connection, where text message, you just need access to the mobile network. So that is one small pitfall, but you can get more information, like if the message was read, when it was delivered, and the analytics go a bit deeper. So that's all the explanation. As I said, I'm a code tinkerer, so I just like to get to the code. So first thing is we're going to set up a Node app. I'm going to put the instructions here, and then I'll just copy paste it so that you can see that this stuff really works. So first couple steps is we're going to create a directory, initialize it as a Node app, install our dependencies. You can see here that there's only one real major dependency, and that's the Vonage Node SDK. So that's going to give us access to the Messages API. And the Messages API is where we actually have that RCS functionality from. Also, we use Express to set up our server and .env to store our environment variables and do that securely. As you can see, there's just 2 files in this project. I will share a link at the end to our developer blog. It's not posted yet, but I have an accompanying blog post to this workshop that's going out. It's already written up and everything. And in that blog post, you'll see all the functionality we built today, but a little bit more of a real life organization structure that you could use. So let's make that. Wait, I'm going to change what I share here. So let's just do our entire screen. So I'm going to just open up my terminal, copy paste. So created that node app and initialized it. Now let's install those dependencies, including the Vonage SDK. Just check if we have any questions while that happens. And if anyone has any questions throughout, please just post in the chat. And okay, that looks like our dependencies were installed. Let's create our project. And we're going to now open up our project in VS Code and put in those environment variables. So here you can see we have 5 configurations. Vonage application ID. So we're going to now create our Vonage application in the dashboard. And we need 4 pieces of information there. Your app ID, which you'll get from the app, your API secret, which you'll get from your account, the private key, which we download from the application itself, and our RCS sender ID. So enable to use RCS with the Messages API, you need to have an RCS account. So that's with it's through Google, but the Vonage team, the sales team can help you set that up. So let's now we're going to go to the Vonage dashboard and set up our application. So after we do the 2-factor authentication, 2533. And if you don't have a Vonage API account, at the end, I'm going to share with you a coupon code. So you start with some credit, but we'll also give you some more. So what we're going to do is scroll down here to create a new application. Create application. Let's call it RCS Interactive Football Demo. As I said, we're going to have a private key. This is used for authenticating. We're going to use that when we send our request to the API. As I said, we're using the Messages API, so we'll turn that functionality on. And now we have a couple of configurations of webhooks where the API will send us information. So the first one is inbound URL. So basically, every time that our application gets a message, it's going to forward that message and information to the URL that we've put here on the inbound. And the second one is status. So whenever there's an update in the status of a message, like if we send a message and it's delivered, or if it's not delivered, or if it's answered, there's a second webhook that gets that callback that will then forward it to our node application. For this demo, we're going to just use ngrok, which is going to basically allow our local application to be accessible for the API to be able to forward that information. So here I'm going to say ngrok HTTP 3000. That's that port that we set up in our environment variable. So the app is going to run on 3000, localhost 3000, and then ngrok makes it accessible through this public URL, which Vonage can then send that information to, because Vonage can't send information to localhost 3000, so we use ngrok. I'm going to put ngrok /inbound and ngrok /status. And then we scroll down and say generate application. And the one last thing that we need to do is to link this app to our RCS account. So as I said, the RCS account, you need to get that enabled. So basically, you have to do a sign up with Google, and the Vonage sales team can help you with that, getting set up with Google to be able to send messages as a business or organization. So I'm going to just hit link. So now this app is ready to go to be able to send RCS messages. The one thing was I downloaded that private key. So I'm going to open a new tab and open our project in the Finder and do a cheat code, which is take that private key and put it into our project. And you can see that I have a lot of Vonage private keys. So now our app is pretty set up. Let's check our instructions. So we created a new app, we gave it a name, generated the private key, turned on the messages capabilities, and set our webhooks. We linked the, oops. How do I do this in the slideshow? Some review. We linked that, and so now we are ready to start to create our app. So first, let's just get some boilerplate. Okay, that's not gonna work. We're gonna grab the boilerplate and throw this into our index.js file. So let's open this in VS Code. Oh, that's a good thing. Actually, we created our app, but we didn't actually add our environment variable. So let's do that now. I go back to the Vonage dashboard. Here at the top, you can see our application ID. So let's grab that and add it to our environment variable. The next thing we need to do is get our API signature. So that's under the account page, under API settings. And it's this thing, the signature secret. So we're going to grab that and put our signature secret. And the last one is the RCS sender ID. So that's this ID that would be here for your RCS account. And already had it configured for the path to our private key. So since we put in the root here, we have the path to the root. So that's great. Now we can grab this boilerplate for our Node app. And all it is here is grabbing the, loading the Express library and creating an Express server, which is running on that port, which we defined in our env file. So we're going to be running an Express server on port 3000, and that's all that does there. The next thing is we need to load all of our dependencies. So we have a few here. FS file system, so that's going to let us open the private key file. .env lets us load our environment variables from that env file. Vonage is our Node client, so that gives us access to everything in the SDK, which we included before. And one of the libraries in there is the JWT library, which helps us create JOTs really easy using our application ID and our private key. So we don't have to do any custom code there. We have that JWT library in all of our SDKs. And yes, so let's just grab that. We're gonna put that here. So we're gonna load up all of our, yep, so those are all our library, dependency libraries, perfect. So once we have those libraries imported, we can start to use them. So first thing is that we're gonna go process that env, grab our API secrets, grab our private key, and then create an instance of the Vonage client object. So this object here, Vonage, gives us access to all those underlying APIs. Oh, and I promise I didn't read that, but that's kind of funny. I literally said exactly what I wrote before. So let's put that here. And now that we've got all of our dependencies loaded, we can start with the RCS. So in our demo, if you remember, our first message, actually, let's just go back here. First thing we want to do is this very first interaction. So we send the user the message who will win, and then they're going to get these three options back. This message here is called a suggested reply. We're sending a message, and then these options that we give the user, those are the suggested replies. So what we need to do for that is first create an endpoint so that we can somehow trigger this message being sent, right? So we're going to call it send who will win. And there we need to define the recipient of our message, and then all the information that the Vonage API is requesting, is expecting from us, right? So we have a messages API. That messages API has a bunch of different channels. So you can use it to send text, to send WhatsApp, to send Viber, MMS. So it does a lot of different things. It's called omnichannel. And so we need to tell it, hey, we want you to send this user an RCS message. And who's it going to be from? It's going to be from that RCS account that we set up in our environment variable. And in RCS, we have a bunch of different message types. So in RCS, you can send the suggested replies like we saw, but you can also just send regular old text messages. You can send images, you can send videos. So we need to tell it, send this thing called custom. And the custom message type is for suggested replies, and the other two kind of messages that we're going to use later on, which are the rich cards. Now, the most important thing in all of this is the custom object. The custom object is where we tell it basically what kind of message out of those options and what goes into those messages. So let's just put this, I'm going to start with this boiler code, and then we will see how that custom object looks. So, and then because this is a async function, where when we hit that request, we're gonna then send off our message to the message API, but we don't want to continue with the code till we get a response. So that's why we have the try and catch here. And you can see how we actually use the client here, which is Vonages, then we call the messages API, and then we say send this message that we created here. Just check if there's any questions. Nope. Okay, good. So what goes into that custom object? I said that this is going to be the thing that defines our suggested reply. And there's just a few points a few options here to declare. First is the text, right? So what's that message that we want to send? And then we give it an array of options to send back. So this can be between, I guess, technically 1 to 3 options. And each option needs text, which is displayed, and then post-back data. So this can be anything, and that you can then use programmatically, which you'll see how we're going to use it later in the flow of our app. So let's just take that custom object, which will give us the options Brazil, Germany, or draw. And then we'll have the postback data, which allows us to then receive information about which selection that user made. So let's replace our custom object here. And now we have a good message that we can send. So Alvaro, if you hear me, we are now going to test our we're going to test our code. So already just after a little bit of setup, we have a working suggested reply we can send. Now, one thing to know about the RCS is that it is dependent on markets. So I'm here in Tel Aviv where we don't have RCS rolled out yet. So that's why I need my lovely assistant, Alvaro, to help me out here. And I'm going to now send him a curl from the, I'm gonna now send him a curl request from the terminal, and let's see. Oh, I need to update the ngrok. Send him a, I'm gonna send a request to that post endpoint that we built. And wait, sorry, I just need to get the post command built correctly with the correct ngrok URL. See, that should work. And here we have it. So you can see with that message that we sent, that we configured who will win with our 3 options, Brazil, Germany, and draw. Awesome. So already very quickly we have that running, and Alvaro selected Brazil. Sadly, we do not see Brazil, but Alvaro, thank you. I'll take back the stage now. So what did I do to make that work for Alvaro? So as I have here, post request, just with a basic curl to our ngrok endpoint, and then to that who will win. And all I had to do was provide Alvaro's phone number here. So we had our ngrok running. I started our node server here, and then after a couple of misconfigured code requests, I got it right. And right away, I got that message that it was sent successfully. In our server, it returned back the message UID. That's from the API, which there's a corresponding ID for every message sent in the messages API. So I know that was good. And then we can see here in our ngrok, this request went through successfully. And then when Alvaro sent back his response, the messages API forwarded it back to our inbound endpoint. And it said 404 not found because we haven't built that yet. And as you can see, there's no information here about his selection either. So that seems like a problem. So that seems like the next thing we should probably build out. And let me see if there's any questions. Oh, okay. So the next thing let's build out is that inbound endpoint so that when Alvaro selects a response, we can handle it and then send the next part of our flow. So similar to the last endpoint, it's going to be a post request. And then we have a check on the inbound request to make sure that it's actually coming from the Vonage API, right? We don't want just to have a naked inbound endpoint that anyone could send messages to. So we'll use that verify signature object that we got from the JWT library. So let's go ahead and add that. And so what do we actually want to do? We want to handle the input that comes from Alvaro. So in that request body, we're going to save that to inbound message. And then we're going to check, did this thing, because we know it's coming from the messages API, let's make sure that we're getting an RCS message. And let's make sure that we're getting a reply message type. Now you might say, wait, this first message that we're getting is a suggested reply, but later we're going to use RCS rich cards, which are those images which also have buttons you can click. So underlying that actually is that, just as I said, those cards functionally underneath, when you click the suggested reply, it still comes back as a message type reply. So that's really cool for us because we can reuse a lot of the same logic. So once it passes that check, actually, let me this. I'm just going to put this here and we can talk through it. So as I said, we're going to check that it comes from RCS. We're going to check that it's a reply type. And then if we know that this is a suggested reply, we're going to check that it has post-back data. If it has post-back data, then we're going to save that to the user selection. And if it gets sent without being declared with post-back data, which you can do, we're going to use the ID to fall back to. And we need to know, so in our user flow, right, if we get it back to a suggested reply, we want to then trigger a follow-up message, right? So we need to know who are we sending the follow-up message to. So we grab that sender number who's sending us a reply that we can continue this flow. And for now, let's just console log what the user selected. So just to show that that works, Alvaro, do you want to share again? And I'll do it again. So I'm going to restart my server. And I'm going to send that request again. You can see we got a message back, and we got Brazil. And now, if Alvaro let me share again. So now I sent the message successfully, same thing. But now we can see in our server, we get back everything we consoled, which was the contents of that inbound message. And we see that Alvaro selected Brazil, which is awesome because now we can make our code, we can finish out the flow of our user journey. So if Alvaro selected Brazil, then the next step of this experience, right? We're at a football match or maybe at a bar, watching Brazil play Germany. So we think Alvaro is a fan of Brazil. We're gonna ask him who's gonna be the best player for Brazil today, or who was the best player. Let's imagine that. Let's imagine that Brazil wins the game. So now the next thing is we're going to send them a man of the match, which happens a lot in actual football matches, right? On Sky or ESPN. At the end of a sporting event, they say, who's your favorite player? So let's build that out. So the next thing is we're going to check against the user selection, which we just showed. And then we're going to use this function called send man of the match message. And you might say, well, what is that man of the match message? Aha, we haven't built it yet. But we're going to first add this code. So we're going to create this conditional, which checks our user selection. And let's put it in here. So if the user selects Brazil, we're going to send the man of the match. And we need to catch all other selections. So if they don't choose Brazil, we're just going to say, thanks for selecting whatever you selected. For today's exercise, we're not going to build out every single possible flow. We're just going to stick to one flow. But once you see how you can do just one, then you can build out all the rest of the options. But yeah, basically, we're going to assume that Alvaro is a big Brazilian fan. But you can see here how simple it is with the RCS, with the Messages API. If you're not doing one of those custom messages and you just want to send text, you just write text and give that text, and that's all you need to put, along with calling the Messages API from the client here. So we now have this code, which says, if the Brazil, let's send the man of the match message. So maybe let's go figure that out. The man of the match is going to be its own function. And here, similar to how we had before, is going to be look pretty much identical, RCS custom. And as I said, all the magic happens inside of this custom object. So let's add this function into our code so that we can call it on that endpoint. So here we declare our async function. All we need is a phone number where we're going to send this message to. We create our message object, and then we're going to call it with the API. But so how do we change this from a suggested reply to a card? Let's go into slideshow because I think I had it. Let's do like this. So yeah, I just want to make this clear to everyone. So this is what we call a standalone card. You can see the example here. The card comes with some kind of media, and then you have also the option to give it a title and a caption. So this media can be either a high definition image or a video. And then you can do suggested replies, the same as how we did the who will win, or these can also be suggested actions. So we'll see suggested actions in the last carousel of cards, but actions basically link out of the app to some other place in the phone. It can be to a browser, it can be to a calendar application, it can be to a maps application. But we're going to continue here with the suggested replies. So yeah, here you can see the code that goes behind one of these cards. So we need to tell in the custom object that this is going to be a rich card. Is it going to be a carousel or standalone? It's going to be standalone. How do you want the image presented? Which way do you want the buttons to appear in relation to the media? The title here would be "Meet Our Office Puppy." The description: what would you like to do next? And then again, you define what is the media that goes in. It's going to be a file, so you can see I kind of did a hacky thing here. Just use GitHub to store the images that we're going to use today. And then force refresh is a requirement from Google, who sets all of these properties. And basically, should each time that the message gets sent, should it go and check this file URL, or can it cache that file for faster loading? And then lastly, we define our suggestions. So we're going to give suggested replies. And again, the same as how we had before, it's a text and a postback data, which then gets returned back to the API based on what the user selects. So let's now just take that custom object, put it here, replace. So now we've defined our man of the match message, and we filled out our inbound to check for the Brazil. So I bet you can guess what's next. Let's test. So again, I'm going to ask Alvaro to take over. And I will restart my server in the meantime. And again, send that curl request. Alvaro selects Brazil, and boom, voila. Like magic, we get our standalone card, and we get that fallback behavior that we defined for the default, right? Because so far, all we have in our logic, it's checking if the user selects Brazil, but the user selected Ronaldinho, so it doesn't know what to do, so it just sends a message saying thank you. So that gives our last to do, which is we need to create the last step of our flow for when Alvaro selects Ronaldinho. So let's go ahead and share again. So now we need to update that conditional. In real life, we might use some kind of more advanced logic here, like using a switch case, or create a standalone function which maps all of the different options that our user can select from. But for this exercise, we'll just use a else if. So exactly how we checked before, if the user selects for Brazil, we're going to check if they selected Ronaldinho. If they do, we'll let ourselves know in the console. So actually here, we can see from that last time that we ran the app, Alvaro selected Brazil. Then it's going to send the man of the match message. It sent that standalone card. And then we see that Alvaro selected Ronaldinho. So now let's use that to take the next step. So once we check for Ronaldinho, what do we want to do? Exactly how we had before. We are going to send the player merge carousel. So that's going to be another function which defines sending the RCS carousel. So let's add that extra logic into our if else. So it's here inside of our inbound endpoint. So we had if Brazil, else all other cases, and here we're going to do one more check. So if it's not Brazil, if it's Ronaldinho, let's send that player merge carousel. So now we need to create that send player merge carousel function, which is going to look a lot like our send man of the match. From here, it's exactly the same. We have an async function that we are defining, given a phone number, so we know who to send it to. And like I said before, all the magic happens in the custom object. So let's close out this endpoint. Here we have our man of the match function. Let's add this skeleton for our send player merge carousel here. So what goes inside the custom object? The only thing that changes on the first level is that we say for a rich card, this is going to be of carousel card type. We can set a width for how wide each one of those cards takes up. So we have 3 cards, so we can say how much we want it to bleed over the edge. And in our standalone card, we have this property called card content that's singular. And in the carousel, it's card contents plural. So that's where we're going to add an array of cards. So let's add that to our custom object. I'm going to replace this custom object with that holder. So now all that's left is to add this array of cards. And I just want to show to you oh wait, sorry, this is the one annoying thing about webinar. Sometimes it's not the easiest to present. So going inside of that array of card contents is going to be 3 different objects, and each one of them is a card. And you can see here that it's exactly the same information that we had before for a standalone card. You have a title, you have a description, you tell it what's the media. So is that a picture or is that a video? The media is also optional. And then you tell it what is the suggested either action or reply. So up until now, we've only seen suggested replies, and now we can see how an action works. So action is defined by the URL, or also you have kind of like action URLs, so they can link to, like I said, a calendar app or to a Maps app like Google Maps or Apple Maps. And the other two properties are the same as the reply. So what gets displayed and what that postback data is. And based off of the type of action, you can change what the little icon here is next to it. And you can see that depending on how many cards you have, you'd be able to slide through each card as a little carousel. So that's how one card looks. And this is actually how our array of cards look. So it's very, very tiny. I know it's impossible to see, but basically this is just 3 cards inside of an array, inside that card contents array. So I'm going to grab this, copy it. And again, I'm going to replace the card contents here. Let's see if you can see that. So the first one is going to be Ronaldinho jersey. Give a description and the URL. All of these are URLs. Like you could pretend that this is to your company store or app store, and it sends the user to different pages, like to the top of the shop or to the t-shirt section or to shoes, whatever you're trying to highlight. So here, autograph photo. Again, we do buy now and then have different postback data so that if we wanted to continue the flow from there and know what the user selected, we'll get that information back based off of which action they click on. So even though the user leaves the app, we know what they actually selected. And lastly, we have a card for t-shirts. So with that, we have filled out the carousel. So I'm going to let Alvaro for the last time take over the stage. And one last time, I'm going to send that first message, who will win. Go Brazil. Who was the man of the match? Ronaldinho. And we can see that we have our carousel of 3 cards with our beautiful AI images. So I don't know if you could see, but Alvaro clicked on one of those links and then it took him out of the messaging app. So just to show you what was going on in the, so Alvaro's back to show the suggested action. So you can see, the 3 different cards here, which then takes you to the link. Amazing. Now your users have this interactive experience where you can really create 360 user journeys and take them to their shop based off of, if they're at a game, if they're at a concert, if they're at some kind of other event, build really timely applications and get them to the information, the content that you want to get them to. Great. Thank you, Alvaro. I'm going to just show how this looked on the back end. So when I sent that post request, we get the same message back, but let's see what happened in our server. Alvaro hit Brazil, then we send the man of the match, then sent Ronaldinho, and then then the app sent the carousel back, and then the player merchandise carousel was sent successfully. So there we go. That's our 360 user experience. And let me just do this one. So amazing. We did 3 different messages. We created the user flow to go from suggested reply to a standalone card to a card carousel. And you can really see the power of RCS messages, where it's way more than just sending a text message. You can get your users to whatever end product, whatever end experience that you want them to. And this application pairs really nicely with one of our network APIs called device location. So imagine you could pair this by also knowing where a user is. So if they're at the stadium itself, or maybe they're at a pub, you could then say, hey, I think you're watching the game, who's going to win? And then you could take it from there, or any other event-based activities. So does anyone have any questions? I know that I spoke for a long time. See, we have a couple people. Okay. And so you can use the coupon code for 10 euros of free coupon credit to get started, start building with RCS or any of our other API options. And as I said, I have a blog post that shows how to do this coming out. I'll share it on the developer Slack. And if you have any trouble building, I'm always there. So you can tag me, and I'm always happy to jump on a call and help you figure out how to get your app working. And lastly, we have a awesome opportunity to win some Legos. I'm going to drop this link in the chat. We have a Lego prize, and all you have to do is complete the feedback form. There's not too many people in the audience, so you have a really good chance to win. This is what the Lego looks like. It's going to be your own personal character in a Vonage shop. So how fun is that? And lastly, thank you so much. I hope you found this informative. And even if you don't have any questions today, as I said, I'm always in developer Slack and happy to answer any questions. So if you're here and you have something you want to say, it's your last chance. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a good day. Bye-bye.